Practice, The Life of a Musician, 2008. Okay, that's what we're talking about today. Now, I divided this into a few different sections. First section is pre-practice. Second section is practice. And the third section is performance. So pre-practice, practice, and performance. Okay. Now, what I'm going to suggest is that you take notes. Because the stuff that I want to talk to you about today has the potential of changing your life. Changing your musical life. So, you will want to take some notes. All right. Number one, I'm going to get right into it. Right into it. Time management. Right in it. Front of the jump. That's right. Another discussion about time management. Time management. You can't get around this. One of the lyrics in that song, let's see here. Let's see here. Get up, because you can't stop. Get up. Got a lot to do. 24 hours, almost gone. Get up. Don't sit there. Get up. If you want to get there, clocks don't stop and time won't wait. Clocks don't stop and time won't wait. So, you can either use the time to do something productive, or you lose the time. And that's the bottom line. There's no way to get around it. There's no blue pill to take that solves all your problems or that fixes everything. All you have is every day, every minute, every hour. That's all you have. And you either use that to go pursue what it is that you say that you want to do, or you don't. Those are your two options. And we can get really detailed into time management and, okay, you're using too much time doing this and you're using too much time doing that. But I have found that information is not the problem. Information is not the problem. We have something called the internet. And the internet, you can find out information about anything that you want to from experts. You can find a lot of crap out there too. But if we were spending more time on the internet actually looking at things that were going to make us better people, that are good information, practical, all of that kind of stuff, instead of MySpace and all of the things that we do that waste time. Now, if you use MySpace or Facebook as a networking device, that's different than using it as a social device. Sitting at your computer, talking to the computer is the same as going to the bar or going any other social place and just sitting around. It's the same difference. Because guess what? The same amount of time is going to take. Maybe you save some drive time. Okay? So, willful ignorance. No, can't do that. Willful ignorance. There's a lot of that going on. Okay, in all of us. Famous quote, you must be brutally honest with yourself or you'll drown yourself in self-deceit. Brutally honest. Because what starts to happen is you let yourself get away with a little bit, and then the next time you'll let yourself get away with a little bit more. And then let yourself get with a little bit more and a little bit more. And before you know it, you're telling yourself huge lies. And then you can't tell the difference between what's right and what's wrong, what's reality and what's fiction. This is why I have such a problem with the media. It's because the media keeps telling second, and the third, and the fourth, and the 10th, and the 15th, and the 25th, and the 30th time, we know it's not true. But somehow, we hear it a few more times, and then we start thinking that that stuff is true, or there's some validity to it. The same thing happens when you do that to yourself. So, in your conscience as a musician is important, because your conscience will let you just play over and through a section of the music that you know is not right and act like it's okay, right? After a while, your conscience won't waste its time with you anymore. After you just keep making mistakes and you just act like it's okay, then pretty soon you're going, hey, okay, yeah, that's right, yeah. Good job. High five. You know? So, be thinking about that stuff. Actually, time management, the term time management is actually an oxymoron. Because, right, time doesn't wait. Right? Time waits for no one. So, time management, that, a manager can hire and fire you, right? There is no management of time. So a better way to think about this is event control. Whoever controls the events in their life is not controlled by the events in their life. So, priorities. Establishing clear priorities for yourself. Clear priorities. What's most important to you? How many people in here love music? Okay, that's great. That's good. All right. Now, the way that you can tell if you love something, really, is what you're willing to sacrifice for it. It's what you're willing to sacrifice for it. Love has a lot of fuzzy feelings and, oh, that's so great, I love her, or I love him, But see, love is not a feeling. Love is what love does. It's a commitment. It's about a lot of self-sacrifice. It's about a lot of struggling. It's about a lot of doing stuff that you don't really want to do, but you said that you loved it, so you do it anyway. That's really what love is. And so, if you can find something in your schedule that you're doing more than what your first love is, music, right? Then really, it's that other thing that you love. And you just really like music. Oh, man. So maybe some of us should change our vocabulary or our verbiage when we talk about music. Maybe we should say, we really like music. I like music a lot. But love is a strong word. And be aware of how you use that word. Because you use it in a way that is not true enough. You won't know what love means. You won't know what it means. So then you say, I love this and I love that. But hey, you don't really love those things at all. So think about that. When you say, I love music, what does that really mean? It's not just about a fuzzy feeling. It's not just about feeling good. It's about feeling bad and still pursuing. Okay? Being organized. Okay, now, by the way, I don't claim to be an expert at any of the stuff that I'm talking about. I see myself as a student. I see myself as a student. And you know what? I hope that always stays that way. We're all students. We're just at different places in the continuum. We're all students. And with my students, the reason that I can feel totally open with information and don't feel intimidated or like, heck, if I tell them that secret, they're going to be competing against me. The reason that I never get there is because I'm always learning. And so if I tell you guys everything that I know right now, it won't matter because tomorrow I'll know something else. And the next day I'm going to know more. because it is a pursuit for me. All of this is a pursuit. So all this stuff I'm talking to you guys about is stuff that I learned either the hard way, which you don't want to have to learn stuff the hard way. I either learned it the hard way, or I learned it because I'm trying to make myself better. And the best way to teach, I think, is by teaching yourself and then teaching others. So, organization, being organized. You know, one of the things that I did, and I started to, I'm still, this is going to be revised several times before it's done, but all my students have a practice log book. And in this book that I designed, there's all kinds of information, music information, there's manuscript paper, there is a syllabus, of course, there's a check-off list of things that they have to do for that quarter, and there's practice logs. The heart of this are these practice logs. Practice logs are, there's 4 basic areas that I have my students practicing. 4 basic areas. One is warm-up. Okay, one's warm-up. And so warm-up's anything from rudiments and scale studies and all kinds of things like that. Technical studies, long tones, all that kind of stuff. Transcribing or ear training. Transcriptions or ear training. Third section is improvisation, of course. And then the 4th section is repertoire and performance preparation. So those are the 4 basic areas. And it's very, very specific. Very specific. And they are to fill out how much time they're practicing and what exactly that it was that they practiced. And we have a long list of things to practice. A long list of things to practice. It's about being organized. It's about being organized. If you're not organized, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know if you've accomplished anything. So you have to be organized. And I found in my own practice time that I was not satisfied with the lack of organization. And so I developed this actually for myself. I actually developed it for myself. So anyhow, so there we go. Lots of other kinds of information in here. You know, there's some other stuff in here, and we talked about priorities. And one thing I want to talk to you about is establishing a list of goals for yourself. Goal setting. A lot of times we don't talk about goal setting in music. We just assume that you know what it is, right? I know what my goal is. I'm going to be first chair and then use it for that's what whatever it is. Okay, but this, I actually forced them to write this stuff down on paper and look at it. So there's a dream goal. Okay, say your dream goal, you don't, with your dream goal, you don't, your dream goal is not a realistic goal, if you know what I mean. Everybody know what I mean? Dream goal is exactly what it sounds like, a dream goal. So what is your absolute highest dream, the thing that you want like nothing else, that you could just see yourself doing at some point, or that you're beyond your imagination, whatever that dream goal is, write that down. Okay? If you start establishing quote-unquote realistic goals for yourself, is as they say, you shoot for the sun, or the stars, you hit the moon, right? If you shoot for the moon, you hit the ground. You hit the shed. Right? You don't want to hit the shed. You at least want to hit something up in the sky, right? So you establish a dream goal. And it's something totally outlandish, something that you know, just sounds crazy. Now you have to learn who to tell these dream goals to and who not to tell these dream goals to. Because the people that are around you, they hate on your dream until you don't think that you can accomplish your dream. Right? So you have to be careful about that. And then there are long-term goals, intermediate goals, and short-term goals. Now the way this works is that all of your short-term goals should be leading towards your intermediate goals. All of your intermediate goals should be leading toward your long-term goals. And all your long-term goals should be leading toward your dream goal. Now, if that's not happening, then there's something wrong with your goals. Or maybe what's happening is some of that realistic goal setting is starting to set in. Right? You know, one thing that I love about music is that with music, I can do anything that I imagine. Now, that doesn't mean I don't have to work for it. It's a lot of work involved. But it's all about imagination. It's all about being in total control of those 12 notes. Being able to manipulate them in any way I want to create something that only I can dream of. But for some reason, for most of us, where that stops is in our brain, in our mind. That never happens out here. You know? That whole being realistic stuff, that's way overplayed. You know, what is that in realistic? That's not realistic. I don't even know what that means. I mean, I certainly don't want to do music if I have to do something realistic. Doesn't make any sense. There's a whole lot of other things I can do to make a whole lot more money. A whole lot more money than music if I'm just trying to be realistic. I'll just be realistic now. No. Okay. Now, let's talk about routine. A little bit about routine. Now, the routine is, it sounds boring, right? And a lot of us became musicians because we didn't want routine. Let's just be honest. We didn't want a routine. We wanted to just be able to, right, play our instrument and express how we feel and become one with the earth. And, that's what we wanted. So, routine, that's the place where all your dreams can actually be formed into reality. It's through the window of routine. If you don't have that structure, that organization, that routine, that pattern, that regimen, if you don't have that process, then your dreams can never become reality. It just won't happen. So you have to have that routine. That's the place. That's the place where the rubber touches the road. All right? And I think sometimes what happens is that it's not that we don't all have dreams, lofty dreams. It's that when it comes to the work that it's going to take to execute, you know, to get to that place, that's when I don't know, that's not very really realistic. So that's when we start listening to that. Well, it is really hard. I don't know. It's kind of rough. Man, 4 or 5 hours a day? Wow. You know, Wynton Marsalis practiced 5 hours a day for 7 years straight without missing a day. Very specific things that he was practicing. Very specific. Very regimented routine. 5 hours a day for 7 years without missing a day. That's a routine. All right? Had a pretty good time this week in the practice room. That's not a routine. Routine is something that you are able to execute over time. Now, a lot of people say that after you've done something for 21 days straight, then it becomes easier. That's hogwash. Remember, there's no blue pill in this lecture. that is totally hogwash. Now, you might have some expectation to do whatever it is that you've established, that routine or that pattern. But it's always just as hard to say, I'm going to do this anyway. I don't feel good today, or I don't feel motivated. You know, it's always the same thing. My ex-wife and I had this conversation where I was trying to get her to go to the gym. I was like, hey, let's go to the gym. You know, I've been in the gym since I was in 8th grade or something, freshman in high school. So I was like, hey, you know, why don't you come with me to the gym? Let's go do this. You know, and you know, I kept trying to, you know, nudge her to see if I could get her to go to the gym. Finally, one time she blew up and she says, I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to go to the gym. You go to the gym because you like the gym. I don't like the gym. This is what she says, okay? Well, now in that is the problem, because her view of me going to the gym was based on, she thought that I had some kind of fuzzy feelings about the gym. That, I just, when I go to the gym, it just makes all my problems go away. Oh, I love the gym. Look, I hate the gym just as much as anybody else. I don't like sweating. I don't like being sore. I don't like exerting all that energy. I don't like it. But I realize that it's the gym that is going to cause me to have the kind of look that I want, to be in shape. And there's health benefits related to the gym. That's why I go. I don't go because I like the gym. And I don't practice most of the time because I like to practice. There's a lot of times I don't want to practice. I don't want to touch an instrument. I'm tired of that. Most of the time, let's just be honest. Most of the time, that's what the case is. And maybe there's some of in here that the practice room is their favorite time of the day, and they just look forward to it all day, and then, you know, that's what it is. And you know, this is great for you. But maybe you should be up here talking to us. But for me, it's about work. It's not something that I want to do a lot of times, but it's something that I see as being necessary. You know, I think that one of the big things is that we have to quit trying to look for some kind of easier way to do this. Just face up with the fact that this is not easy. It's not going to be easy. And if you really love it, you will be willing to deal with the pressure. The pressure. Let's talk about pressure. How do you create a diamond? It's pressurized coal, isn't it? Over like millions of years, right? Pressurized coal. And just think of yourself as that lump of coal that is being pressurized until something extremely valuable comes out. But guess what? I don't think the coal likes being squeezed. But what ends up being created is very valuable, right? So, think of it. I have a few things written down on the board over here that I like to say to my students. Don't perform in the practice room. Now, what does that mean? Don't perform in the practice room. Okay, so let me say it in English. Okay, don't perform in the practice room. Performance is when you have polished something for public presentation. Okay, that's performance. Practice is when you are working on things that you cannot play. Okay, that's practice. Now, let's understand that warming up your instrument is okay. Say, if I spend 5 to 10 minutes warming it up, playing long tones, obviously things like that, that's just about, you know, getting yourself to a certain place. And trumpet players have spend 30, 40 minutes, sometimes just playing long tones, getting the chops going, and buzzer playing. All right? That's all right. But if my whole practice session ends up just being a bunch of stuff that I can already play, that's your performing. Now, let's be honest about this. Let's be honest about this. With the way that this building is designed, everyone can hear everyone when you practice. Okay? And your audience is the other people practicing, right? Right? That's your audience. So you don't want to hear that. You don't want them to hear you sounding bad, like you really struggle with it. You want to make sure that they know that you can really play. Right? Isn't that what's happening? Now think about that. If you succumb to that temptation, what's going to happen is you're stunting your growth. Because the more that you play stuff that you can play already, the more you stay the same. But the more that you play things in the practice room that you can't play, the more you'll get better. Is that something? And talking about what to practice, it's not really the issue. What to practice. That's not what it, look, information is out there. We can find stuff that we can't play. Oftentimes students come to me because they want to find some easier way to get about it. And then I always tell them there is no easier way, but this is what you can practice. Okay, so it's not about what to practice. It's about practicing, period. What is practice? It's not just playing your instrument in the practice room. That's not practicing. You just perform. So don't perform in the practice room. Discipline is the great equalizer. Discipline is the great equalizer. A lot of my students, a lot of students, period, not just my students, period. There's students of different levels. Students at different levels, all right? And when I say that, there's two different ways to figure this, students at different levels. Some students are different levels because they just started with me, okay? Some students are different levels because they're just, frankly, all of us are not given the same amount of natural ability. We have to be honest about that. That's just true. And life is not fair. Okay, so what I found is that the students that really, really take on the whole discipline thing, really take that on and really identify with that and take that seriously, surpass the students that have more natural ability on a regular basis. On a regular basis. Regular basis. And so discipline is the great equalizer. It equals the playing field. If I know everybody in here knows somebody that's just was born sight reading, just was born and just could sight read anything, didn't have to practice, right? They were just born with a clarinet in their mouth, right? They just didn't have to practice. Everything just came easy to them, right? We all know people like that. But for the rest of us, we got to really work hard to get that. And so if you know it only takes this person 5 minutes to master something, but it takes you 24 hours, then guess what? You know the deal. 24 hours. Get in there for 24 hours. That's all there is to it. Now that sounds like a hard saying, I know. That is a hard saying, but it's the truth. And it's honest, it's straightforward. There is no easier way to get around it. You have to face what your weaknesses are. Head on. Quit ignoring it. Head on. This is what I'm weak at. Deal with what you're weak at. Don't ignore it. Deal with it head on. Great. I want to talk to you now about some things that, especially this summer, I've really been starting to dive into more. And this is, I've been thinking about this and working on a routine, a meditative routine for myself for about 4 years now, 4 or 5 years. And this past summer, I really discovered some things that are really helping me. Now, the stuff I'm going to talk about now is not, it's not religious at all. Some of it has spiritual implications. But it's stuff that I have found in every one of the major world religions. There are meditative practices, and I have kind of extracted some of the practices without the religious content. Okay, so I'm not trying to impose anything on anyone, and I don't want to offend anyone. But I have found this stuff to be very useful for myself, and so I'm going to share it with you. Meditation and spirituality. Here's the negative side effects of life in the postmodern age. Negative side effects of life in the postmodern age. That's the age that we live in, by the way. Number one, anxiety and stress. Let's raise our hands if we have ever felt any of these. Anxiety and stress. Fragmentation. Alienation. Come on, you all music majors, you all should. Everybody's thinking about music. Loneliness and isolation. Practice room, come on. Depression, come on. Stress-related illness. Come on, all of us put our hands up. Now here are 4 popular solutions for certainty and certainty that don't really work. Number 1, addiction. Now, since I'm in the room with a bunch of musicians, right? None of us have ever heard of any musicians with any addictions. Musicians don't get addictions. They don't have addictions. Now, addictions can be a lot of things. Obviously, we know the big bad ones, right? The drugs and alcohol, all of that kind of thing. But I mean, there's other things that you can do. Sex addictions. I'm just trying to talk plain. There's all kinds of things that we can be addicted to. Caffeine, cigarettes, all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of stuff that we can be addicted to. And those addictions seem to give us some sense of consistency, but they're taking away from us way more than they're giving to us. And so it's a false solution for some of those other problems. Addiction ends up being a false solution for some of those problems. Okay? I'm going to do number 2 later. Number 3, entertainment. You know how much money this country spends on entertainment? It's ridiculous. It's totally, totally ridiculous. It makes any sense. And it's because they know that if we're amused and mindless enough, then we'll feel better about ourselves, right? And then we run around chasing the next entertainment item. And that becomes a pursuit in itself. So you can become a little more distracted by what's really wrong. Right? Okay. Consumerism. That's number 4. Consumerism. I got a story for you. I got a story from this summer. I was going to get a new cell phone. Okay. Now, this cell phone, I think, was originally supposed to come out in August or something. But they kept, holding the phone, and then it finally came out in September sometime. And was going to come out September 1st. What's the name of the phone? Touch Diamond. So the Sprint phone, Touch Diamond, made by HTC. Supposed to do everything that the iPhone does, plus everything that PDAs do. It's a touch screen. If I turn it sideways, it knows it's sideways, so the screen reconfigures. All kinds of great stuff that the phone does. And I have to tell you, man, it just started to monopolize my thoughts. I wanted to get this phone. Now, I already have a cell phone, and in fact, the cell phone that I have now already does way more than I need, and does way more than the one that I had before it. But for whatever reason, I just had to have a cell phone. So I got on the computer every day, a couple times. Right? Getting on YouTube to see if somebody had a new video out on the phone. Right? Every kind of internet research I could think of. Wasn't researching if I knew to make it better as a person. But I was researching this phone. Right? And it got to the point where I was like, you know what? Because I was going to purchase the phone. And I was like, you know what? I'm not buying this phone. And the reason I'm not buying the phone is because if I buy this phone, as soon as I buy the phone, my dad used to tell me, wants are insatiable. Think about what that means. Wants are insatiable. As soon as I buy that phone, then my want list is going to shift to something else. I probably won't even be able to enjoy the phone. I would get a couple good weeks of new toy effect, and then that'll be about it, right? So I decided, you know what? I'm just not getting the phone. And as soon as I made that decision, then it went away. But as soon as I allowed myself to be turned on to that kind of consumerism type of mentality, I gotta get it, I have to have it. And how many of us have made dumb decisions based on a toy? A lot of us, right? Now, you know when it's dumb when you're thinking, hey, well, I can get this big, and then rent doesn't really do for like another couple weeks. So, theoretically, I mean, I only really need to eat like one time a day. So theoretically, I can kind of make it. See, when you start thinking like that, this is a real problem. And then credit cards, right? Heck, let me see if I get this one credit card. See, I can get the phone on that credit card right there. See, no. See, that's and I don't have any credit cards. I just decided, you know what? Forget that. Because when I was your age, I made some real dumb decisions. And I decided, hey, I don't need credit cards. What do I need a credit card for anyway? You ever heard of a sinking fund? Sinking fund? Sinking fund is an account that you basically have. All you do is you just put money into the account, and then you're going to use that money to purchase something. Okay? Now, why can't we just do it out front? Why can't you just put money in your own account, right? And then go take that money and go pay for something? Why do we have to get a credit card and then pay them interest? Why do we have to do that? There's something wrong with that. It just doesn't make any sense. Gotta have it now, gotta have it now, gotta have it now. No, you gotta turn that off. You gotta turn that off. That is not good. And number 2 was fundamentalism. Fundamentalism. Now this could be religious or political or any number of things, but guess what? It can be musical and artistic too. You know what? Classical is the greatest music. Everything else is no good. Jazz is the king. You know what? That stuff that Train played during the first period, that's the best stuff right there. Prestige Train, John Coltrane. Prestige, John Coltrane. That's the only stuff I want to hear. Cannonball Adderley is the greatest. Nobody can touch Cannonball. Dance is the real art. None of the rest of that stuff is even that. Now, see, what happens is people are insecure with themselves. And so everything is seen as a competition. And so they jump into that fundamentalist box. And it's really, really, really easy to do. You have to analyze yourself and see if you're doing that, if you're trying to protect yourself by having that view that what you do, the kind of music that you're into, is the only true art. Right? You have to make sure that that's not happening. Okay. Good. Now, let's talk a little bit about meditation. A little bit about meditation. Meditation doesn't take that much, and that's the good thing about this. It's not like you're adding a bunch more stuff to your schedule, or this is going to totally break you. You know, oh, I can't take another thing on my list of things to do. It's not that kind of thing. We're talking about 10 minutes a day. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. Okay? And a meditation can just be something positive that you think. Say you could think, okay, you could sit there in a chair, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and just think on, say right before you go to the practice room, what you want to accomplish in the practice room. It needs to be something short, pretty short. Can't be just a huge long list, or else it's not effective. It needs to be something really short. It needs to be something really short. But it can be something just positive about what you're trying to do. It could be something like, and this sounds like a bunch of like positive thinking, and I'm not really into that, so to speak. I'm more of a realist. But it could be something like, I am a world-class clarinetist. I am a world-class clarinetist. It could be something like that. Okay? So here's a few all-purpose meditations. Number one, practicing relaxation. Practicing relaxation. And that's, you're just going to take about 10 minutes. You're going to sit there, and you're just going to relax. That's all you do. It's not, it doesn't take that much time. Just relax. Just relax everything, right? Relax the muscles in your body. Quit thinking about all that stuff that's going on. Just let your mind go blank if you can. Now that's a hard thing to do, get your mind to go blank with all the stimulus that's going on. But you need that time period where not all this stuff is going in. Okay? Number two, following your breath. So in other words, you're taking deep breaths, and when you're breathing out, you're just thinking peaceful thoughts. Nothing big, nothing that challenging. Yeah.
For the practicing meditation, is that supposed to happen like in the middle of your practice session before?
You could do it in the middle too. Like say if you were getting really frustrated, like something's really jamming you up, just spend about 5 or 10 minutes. Just sit there and just relax. Just relax. Take a deep breath. Hold it for about 10 seconds. Let it out. It doesn't take a whole lot. But just try to get your mind off of it. Walking meditation. I like this one. Walking meditation is great because you get a rhythm from just walking. And the rhythm of walking can actually distract you from whatever the thoughts are going on in your mind. It doesn't have to be a long walk, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Mindful eating. Now, this sounds a little strange. Mindful eating. Well, mindful eating is just, most of the time when we eat, we're in such a hurry that we don't even taste the food. And I'm probably the biggest one guilty of that. We don't even taste the food. So, slow down. Really taste the food. And just relax while you're eating, as opposed to eating is something else I have to do, I got to get something else done, okay? As opposed to that. All right? I just have to eat to survive. Try to get away from that. All right? Finding the beauty. Finding the beauty. That's the next one. There's a lot of beauty in this world. There's a lot of things that are beautiful. You look outside, see how beautiful nature is. And guys, this is not your excuse for but you are doing it. Yeah, we know we have a lot of beautiful young ladies, but this is not your time, because then that ends up being another dictionary. Number 6, cultivating loving kindness. Cultivating loving kindness. Being nice to people. And treating that almost as a sacramental thing. Realizing that everything that goes around comes around. Okay? And it's number 7, peaceful place. A peaceful place. In my house, I have a room that is a prayer room. And when I walk into that room, the way that it's laid out, it's very peaceful. The colors in the room are peaceful colors. As soon as I walk into that room, it's just peaceful. And every morning, I go in and I pray, I meditate before I leave. And that's done it's helped me a whole lot. Let's talk about what a mantra is. A mantra is a short phrase that is repeated over and over to cause the meditator to reach a state of peace and consonance with him or herself. The word mantra, this is very interesting. The word mantra, it means mind protection. Well, that sounds strange, right? Mind protection. But think about it. If you're repeating something over and over, you're trying to infuse that thought, that positive thought, into your brain, and you're meditating on that, and it's blocking other things from coming in. It's hard for your mind to focus on one thing and also be distracted by something else. It's almost not possible. All right, so focusing on that one positive thing, whatever it is, think of something that you want to say. I'm not going to tell you what to say or what that meditation should be, what that mantra should be, but you can use a mantra in some of these time periods that I was talking about, practicing relaxation or following your breath, or walking meditation, or finding the beauty, a peaceful place. You can use a mantra in any of those time periods. And what I found is that before I perform and before I practice, I've started to recite a certain mantra, and it makes me feel much more relaxed. I'm not as tense when I play. When I perform, I'm not as tense, and I'm able to actually be more expressive. My instrument, because a lot of that stuff that usually clogs my mind, I'll make sure that measure 17, I gotta make sure I can play that measure 17. And then you start getting tense, and you get anxious, you get upset because the music didn't go the way that it was supposed to go, and all that kind of stuff. And then it just starts snowballing, and then pretty soon your performance has been corrupted because you can't play from a place of peace. Not talking from experience there at all. Experience, because I don't know myself. Now let's talk about using your practice time as a meditation. Now think about this. When you're in the practice room, you're doing things repetitively, right? So it's almost like a musical mantra, right? It's a musical mantra. But how come musicians are some of the most messed up people in the world? But we have all this time that we're sitting in a room by ourselves when we could actually use that time in a positive manner to become more one with ourselves. But it's almost like we use that as some kind of some kind of an exterior to ourselves, as opposed to expressing our inner feelings, really. So, and I already talked about coming up with your own mantra, and you want to create a consistency between your practicing and your performing. Okay, so say for instance, when I'm practicing, there are certain things that are the same. Okay, I go to the practice room, I practice about the same time of day, everything else. But then when I go to perform, almost everything's different. Everything's different. And then I can't figure out why I'm not able to perform the way that I was able to practice. Well, first of all, nobody's watching you in the practice room. Well, except for your audience. Staring or listening. Except for your audience. The practice room audience. But nobody's watching you when you're in the practice room. You're by yourself in the practice room. If you make a mistake, it's not really a big deal in the practice room, right? But when you're performing, everything's a big deal. Everything that you're doing is being scrutinized. Everything is, so you have to try to create a sense of consistency. One of the things I started to do to distract myself from that reality is I try to do the same thing. I'll try to do the same kind of meditative preparation for my practice as I do for my performance. Another thing that you can do is physically go through the same thing. So say, for instance, if you feel like your hands are stiff, one thing that I started feeling, I don't really do this as much because my hands don't feel as stiff lately, but one of my friends started to soak his hands in really hot water and do that for, as hot as you can stand without hurting yourself. Please don't go and say that Professor Wallace told us to burn our hands. But as hot as water as you can stand, okay? And then, dry your hands off, and then go into practice and do the same thing before you perform, right? Or if you, if you have some kind of, any kind of thing, anything that you do before you practice, you should do the same thing before you perform, as much as possible. As much as possible. Because it creates a greater degree of consistency. And you can actually distract yourself from certain things because you're focusing on those details that are the same and controlling that. Right? You control the things that you can control. The other things you can't control, so you don't worry about it. Right? Great. Using the practice room to remove the dissonance from your thoughts and therefore cause your ideas to flow from a place of peace. Okay? Now, since we're spending so much time in the practice room, again, why not use the practice room to actually improve the quality? To improve our connection with ourselves. Right? You're sitting in the practice room for several hours. 2, 3 hours, 4 hours. How is it possible to go into the practice room, spend that amount of time by yourself, leave the practice room, and you're still just as depressed, just as lonely, just as fragmented, all of those things? It doesn't even make any sense. That's time to personally reflect by using the music. Use the music to do that personal reflection. I want to talk to you a little bit about something that I call the discipline graph. And we're talking about frustration. Okay? How many people have had problems with frustration in practice? Okay, that should be obvious. All right. Now, this is a very interesting phenomena that I found to be true in pretty much every discipline. When you start this graph on this side here, this is skill level. So going with the side is skill level. On the bottom here, this is time. This is time. All right? So when you start doing something new, what happens is that you have aptitude for it. When you start, it's very even increments. The longer that you spend working on it, the better that you get. But then what starts to happen when you get to a certain level is you start to plateau. And the longer that you're plateaued, the more frustrated you get. Right? Now, if you knuckle down deal with that level of frustration and stress. Meditation, right? If you do that, then what will happen is you continue to push through, you're going to get exponentially better. You're going to jump up in level. It's kind of like this. It's like, okay, I kept working on this thing at 75, 75 BPMs. I just kept, I can't play it at 75, can't play it at 75. Come back to it, now I can play it at 82. Flawlessly. How many times does that happen to you? Probably everybody in here, probably several times. Okay? Now, and that's because it's almost like your brain needs time to burn new pathways in your, through the synapses to connect those two things together. It's almost like that's what's happening, right? And then once that happens, then you do it, right? So there we go. Now this is what happens. This has never happened to me. Now this is what happens when you get so frustrated that you say, you know what, forget this. I'm just not messing with this no more. This is what happens. Okay, so you're going to go down, right? But see, the thing is that we are not one dimensional. Our musicianship has several dimensions. So that one, okay. And then we have this one. Let's start at the plateau. And then we'll see we have here. Just probably start with the plateau. Okay, so at the same time period, this is the same time period right there, what happens is, because I gave up on this, because we get real tunnel vision oriented. All I can see is the thing I'm struggling with. I can't see how other areas are not a problem. So what happens as soon as I give up on that, not only does this go down, but of course, all of these other things do too. Now, understand that what I'm talking about, this is not taking some time off and relaxing. This is not, okay, I need to just not play the saxophone, until tomorrow. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, you know what, I'm tired of this. You got so frustrated that you just don't practice for like a week. You're like, forget this. 2 weeks, forget it. Right? That's what I'm talking about. So then all of this stuff goes down. Have you ever heard the phrase, putting something on the back burner? Now, unfortunately, when we talk about putting something on the back burner, what people think is that means that you just forget about it. No, see, the back burners, at least on a modern stove, the back burners still have heat. Right? And actually, those back burners could be just as hot as the front burners. It's just a matter of what you're looking at. It's not that you don't spend time working on those other things. It's just that you're not focusing on what the mistake is or that area of weakness. You're looking at something that you're having some more success at. And that can actually help you to defer that level of frustration until the time when you receive that exponential growth that I was talking about. And then when you receive that, then everything is good with the world and you're all happy anyway, right? Well, we're never satisfied, because that's probably what's going to happen. Is going to be something else that's going to start to frustrate you. So you have to deal with that level of frustration. You have to deal with it. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give some time for some questions. Just some short period for questions, maybe 10 minutes. Then I'm going to let you go. Anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
I just want to go back to that one more silence thing real quick. You said 5 hours a day at 7 years straight. That is 12,775 hours of practice.
Yes.
Just throwing that out there.
Yes. And you know why he started doing that? He started doing that because his teacher told him that he was sounding sad because he kept coming to lessons and wasn't prepared and stuff. And he said that he just got tired of sounding sad. For some slang impaired people, that means that he wasn't very good at it. I think
You didn't take a day off, like we do.
no days off, 5 days
How do
straight.
you not get burned out?
Now, Winton has some known vices that he has used, but anyhow, but yes,
I heard a
not drug addictions or anything like that.
I don't know if this is true, but I just like heard someone say that now he practices like 1 hour a day. That's it, but it's like really focused. Like,
Yep.
It's like really concentrated.
You can accomplish a whole lot in an hour. A whole lot in an hour. It's very focused, very specific things that you're practicing. Very specific things that you're practicing to accomplish a lot. I play a lot of instruments. I play saxophone, flute, clarinet. I play all saxophones, all flutes, all clarinets. I play bass, piano. And if I hope to have, and I have like 3 hours a day to practice. So I have to cut it up between those instruments and to be able to still have success and still sound like a musician that's not a doubler, quote unquote. I don't like that terminology. Which means that basically that you're not a strong enough musician to be considered that to be your primary instrument. That's you have to learn how to read between the lines. But what was your?
Well, there was a similar story with Doc Severinsen. I don't know if you remember the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. They tape that show at 6:30. They rehearse it long before that. They have rehearsals during the day. And they tape that show, and at the end of that show, everybody would go out partying. They'd go out to the restaurants, and they'd go to the bars and things like that. Doc Severinsen, after a day's rehearsal, after a performance, he would go home, go down in his basement, and play for 3 hours while everyone else went out partying. He did that every night.
You go. Of course, a lot of the jazz musicians in here know the stories that I've told about training. Similar story. So it's like, yeah, they loved it. They loved music, right? They loved music. Anybody else have a question? Somebody else had a question. Yes.
What if you practice something at home lunch and then at your next lesson you discover that you practiced it wrong?
Well, then you have to go back, I guess, and practice it correctly. But that's a. I guess everything boils down to being about the details, especially in music. Everything boils down to be about the details, and so as much as possible, and I try to talk to my students about this as much as possible. If you practice mistakes, then you're going to play the mistake. So what you have to do is make sure that whatever it is that you're practicing is correct, so that you're reinforcing what is correct. And on another angle on this, it's kind of like there's a lot of people in here probably that think that they have an outside jumper, jump shot, right? But they don't play basketball very often, right? So the first thing they get on the basketball court, and they're way out by the three-point line, and they're chucking bricks up. But then they hit one from out there. And that just reinforces that they really have range. But there was one out of 30, right? But hey, they still hit it. So, then they get into the game, and they throw an air ball up from there. But the point is that you don't want to practice mistakes, and then you also don't want to practice mistakes because you're playing something too fast. Okay? So if I'm playing something really faster than I can really play it, I'm just enforcing mistakes because I'm going to make more mistakes than I'm going to have success. And so then the mistakes seem like the right thing. And, when it actually is played correctly, it seems wrong. And that's why, So really, if you think you have an outside jumper and you're going for 50 and stuff and 3, maybe you should start with some layups, step back and get some free throws, a lot of free throws, And then step back and see if you can get 3 point. Everybody see what I'm saying?
You talked about how,
Did I answer your question? Was that what you wanted, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
before you talked about how speed is relative, and so if you're playing a tune at a certain tempo and you start increasing the speed, then it'll make that original tempo seem more doable. But would you recommend only doing that if you're already very comfortable with the tune? Because you know, I'm interested in doing that with tunes I'm learning, but at the same time, I'm trying to figure out where the, you know, that point is where I can say, all right, I'm gonna take this like really fast.
You know, I'm a fan of starting with the blues and then going to other things. So you probably are pretty comfortable with the blues. So taking the blues at a real fast tempo,
Mhm.
it's not an issue of are you comfortable with it or not. You're comfortable with it, so it's just an issue of speeding it up.
Right.
So I would take something like the blues,
Right.
speed it up. And then I think what happens is from doing that, it's going to demystify speed. So then you'll be like, hey, I can play fast. I can play stuff at past a certain tempo. And then so that when you start trying to take some other standards that you're comfortable with, and then start taking some of these other songs that are maybe a little more challenging, and you start trying to take those at faster speeds, it's already been demystified.
Right.
So then you're more comfortable with it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Anybody else? Yeah.
I've heard you talk about certain practice techniques that can help focus your practice time, and one of the things you mentioned was practicing like with an egg timer.
Yes.
Maybe you could elaborate on what exactly that entails.
I think there are a few basic tools that every musician needs to be successful in the practice room. A few basic tools. They need some kind of way to document 5 things. I think it's 5 things. They need some kind of way to document what it is that they're working on. That's one basic thing. But they need the chromatic tuner, a metronome, and a timer. And I can't remember what the other one is, but most of them. Oh, that's right. And a recorder. Some kind of way to record themselves. I'm surprised at how many musicians don't record all of their performances, at least some portions of their practicing, and all of their lessons. All of their lessons should be getting recorded. That doesn't make any sense to me. As inexpensive as we can get recorders for, why don't you record every lesson that you've ever had? Why not? That doesn't make any sense to me. And think about some of this goofy stuff that we record, but then we don't record the lessons. I'm going to get you a question in just a second. But with the timer, what's beautiful about the timer is it actually can create almost a meditative thing. Because with the timer, say for instance, if I'm measuring the amount of practice time based on looking at the clock. Every time I look at the clock, I'm breaking focus, I'm momentarily. But if I have the timer set for 15 minutes, and I trust the timer, you have to learn how to trust the timer. Trust the timer. Quit looking at it. Don't look at the timer. It's not going any faster. Trust the timer. And then when it dings, then you know, okay, it's time for something else. Okay? And that can substantially increase the quality of your practice time. Because you can actually dip into almost a you can dip into a really heightened state.
It's like a zone.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, now you were going to say.
I was just wondering if you could recommend like a good
Timer? Recorder. You see these recorders almost all these guys have sitting under, they almost look the same. Who's here? Well, they do look the same, all these recorders. It's a Zoom H1, H2, sorry, Zoom H2. That's the name of the recorder, $199. And that thing records that DVD sound quality. It will record directly to MP3. Okay, it's very good. Yes.
You could price match it to 180. There's a site I got mine for 180. There's a site that you can find it for 180 and they'll price match it. Sam Ash.
Sam Ash, okay, why don't you guys talk after
I think it's kind of a question, kind of a hybrid bid. Like, only thing I found with, like, keeping real rigid timings is that if I'm really just getting into a specific part of my play,
Right.
why would I stop? Why would I want that muscle to go off to remind me that, you know, why would I want to like check the timer after I come out of my own zone kind of thing? Like,
Two kinds of practicing. There's two kinds of practicing. There's more time-sensitive practicing, where I'm practicing 15 minutes of this, 20 minutes of that, 20 minutes of that, whatever it is. And then there's the kind of practicing where you basically have big time blocks, and you're saying, okay, I need to accomplish this in this time block. And that's more kind of contiguous time, large contiguous periods of time. And I found it for myself that on a daily basis, I'm probably going to do more of the regimented 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, that type of thing. And then every once in a while, maybe once a week, maybe once every couple weeks, have a period of time that's a big block where I can really just hit something for that long period of time. Yes, sir.
I've been using the timer thing for about a year, and sometimes I feel really rushed doing the 15-minute thing, because I do all my warm-up rudiments and my 15-minute increments.
Right.
What could you recommend on that?
You could increase the amount of time.
But then that takes away from other areas.
Right. It's all about time. But the thing is that even if you do feel rushed, I mean, how do you really fix that if you still have other things to get done? At least the timer is keeping you honest and saying, look, 15 minutes is up, and you can get to something else. So I think what you have to do is try to, well, you remember we were talking about this too, and that is what you could do is with certain things, don't practice them every day. So say for instance, that could be the amount of time that you could spend on something, which makes you feel like you have a little more breathing room, right? And you can get a little more in depth on it, and then practice the other thing on the other day.
So would you, instead of practicing something in all 12 keys in one day, would you try 4 keys one day, 4 keys the next day, 4 keys the day after? What's more beneficial? What's more beneficial?
If you can do that, then it's cool, But for me personally, if I don't play something in 12 keys in one setting, I'm probably not going to do it the next day. And maybe that's just because I just lack discipline in that area, and maybe I should be better at that. But I just realized for me that I need to just go ahead and push through and get it in every key, unless it's something really, really kicking my butt. If it's really, really kicking my butt, then maybe I'll get like a couple keys and then push on. But I think it depends. I think it depends on the person. But you might be able to do that. That might be your solution. That might be the solution for you. Yes.
Do you ever play a 2-5 where you practice it and you master it, and then do you keep playing it do you do it once a week and you review it so that you still know it? Or how do you do that? If you play one and then in 2 years goes by you want to play it and you don't know it.
I don't spend a whole lot of time practicing 2-5 runs and runs. Just being honest.
Yeah.
Now, I'll take specific 2-5s and turnarounds that there might be a certain sound in it that I'm trying to get into my playing, or just something about it that I like for whatever reason. And I'll take that and I'll work that out. I started working through some of these giant step substitutions and stuff like that, things like that. And the reason is because 2 things. If you can't play your instrument and you can't hear it, then you can't play jazz. You can't play music, actually, right? So I spent most of my time practicing being able to play my instrument, really being able to play my instrument, and being able to hear whatever it is that's going on. And so playing a 2-5-1 or a turnaround in every key, that's cool, that's beneficial, but if I can already hear it in every key, and I can already play it in every key, then it doesn't become as big a value or as taking up as much time in my practice routine. If you want to take a a 2-5-1 and a turnaround and make sure that you remember it. That's why I had the manuscript paper in your practice log, so that you can at least, I don't know, maybe every couple weeks go back and just make sure that you can still play them. Because yeah, you want to at least for a quarter or at least for, you know, a couple quarters be able to remember and be able to execute whatever it was that you played. But hopefully what happens is it's kind of the Charlie Parker thing, where you learn everything that you can and forget it all. So just for the fact that you're able to play it in every key, and you're really able to really hit that in every key. I mean, and you're playing on chord changes and you can hit it anywhere you want to hit it. If you can do that, then you've probably gotten it to the point where it's going to probably manifest itself in your playing sometime way later after you forgot about it, which is kind of what you want to happen. Somebody have a question over here? Or
Yeah,
yes.
you're not telling us that you never practiced 2-5-1s or turnarounds.
I'm telling you
the
that
point that you didn't need to practice them anymore then, right?
I'm saying that that was never a big part of my development as a player. I'm saying that practicing 2-5-1s and turnarounds was very minimal, very minimal. Like maybe I practiced 3 or 4 2-5-1s and turnarounds.
It's a pretty big
Just-
part of your teaching.
Right, because I realized that it's beneficial. I don't teach the way that I learned, because the way that I learned largely was not as, I mean, you know, the way that I learned, there's faster ways to learn what I learned than the way that I learned. Put it that way. And I found that 2-5-1s and turnarounds, practicing certain kinds of patterns, all of that kinds of stuff can speed up the process on getting certain things into a person's playing. And so that's why I suggest doing that. Yes?
I don't mean to disagree, but then, doesn't that counteract, you know, the art process? You know, if you're trying to, like, speed a student up? I'm just wondering, like, you know, I don't know how to explain it, but, you know, I mean, there comes a point where the student just needs to learn on their own 2 feet in a way, and,
Well, yeah, I guess for me, my students come to
like,
me.
if we're all students, you know, and we're all, like, learning and keep, you know, showing up each day, I
Right.
think the results kind of take care of themselves, you
I don't buy that. I don't buy that the results take care of themselves. I think that,
know, well, without effort, you know.
yeah, you know, I understand. I understand what you're saying. What I'm saying is, okay, so you have 3 kinds of people. Okay, 3 kinds of people. You have the wise, the simpleton, and the fool. The wise, the simpleton, and the fool. The fool never learns. The fool never learns. So you tell the fool, the stove is hot, it's going to burn your hand. The fool touches the stove anyway. But the fool's still not convinced that the stove burns your hand. So the fool puts his other hand out there. Still not convinced, puts his foot on the stove. Still not convinced, puts his other foot on the stove. The fool never learns. The simpleton is a person that can only learn from their own experience. It's very inefficient way of learning is from your own mistakes. Because that means that you have to make a mistake and risk never recovering from that mistake to learn. The wise is a person that can learn from other people's experience. The wise can learn from other people's experience. And in our country, we glorify youth and we treat people that really know like they're fools or like we're just tolerating them. If you go out east, it's exactly the opposite. You go to Africa, you go to any of the countries out east, you go way far east, they don't do that. Older people are respected because younger people realize that when they talk to them, that there's a whole lot of mistakes they can avoid from learning from the wisdom of this person. You've ever heard the statement? You ever heard the statement? If we don't learn from history, we're doomed to repeat the same mistakes. you know, in America, we're very educated about what happened over the last 2 weeks. It's on the news all the time. But over the last 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, let alone 2,000 years, 4,000 years, we don't know anything about that stuff. And so what happens is we do the same mistakes over and over and over. We can't even remember what happened in the last administration of the president. And so it's likely that we're going to repeat some of the same mistakes. Because it's all about polarities. Then we got to do this for a while. Okay, now we'll do this for a while. Now we'll do this for a while, and nobody changes or fixes anything. So I guess I'm saying this to say that when I learn better ways to convey information, so that the information can be received quicker and have a faster effect on the student, then it's better no matter what. I don't want my student to have to struggle. My student to have to struggle in the same way I struggle, plus their own personal struggles. So basically it's double struggle. I want to impose a double struggle on my student because I just want them to just have to deal with the same stuff that I dealt with. And so my philosophy in teaching is to learn a better way than the way that I learned, and to convey that, and to communicate that, and hopefully that the student can learn faster than I learned that. Because what's supposed to happen is teachers are supposed to teach better than they learn, and by the time, but they're supposed to still be learning their whole life, right? And then by the time that they die, the student has gotten to that point faster than the teacher could, and then it just keeps going up and up and up. That's what's supposed to happen. And so then, imagine all of the things that could have happened in music by now, if that's what actually has happened. Just all the amazing things in every way you can think of that could have happened by now, if that was the case. You know, so, yeah.
Do you think that there's a danger in moving kids so fast? Like almost like, I mean, you know, like we're producing a mass, like, you know, like the view of jazz has to move at this pace and be here, and you know, like, I don't know, I'm just throwing
I don't think that there's a danger of that. I think if the person is not solidified, if the person is not, look, I mean, we're people. We have issues. And if I don't work out my personal issues and my personal struggles, then no matter what happens, I'm going to be messed up. And I don't think that the information that I'm receiving it too fast or getting to a level too fast is going to have anything to do with that at all. I think you have to work on yourself as a person, and then you work on yourself as a musician. Anybody, any other question? All right, well, I hope you got something out of this, and I have 3 posters.